It was a gray rainy Saturday morning in the city when Richard Hale, a man known in business circles as a sharp self-made millionaire, decided to do something simple for once. Despite all the meetings, all the constant phone calls, and all the endless pressure of being who he was, today he had promised his 7-year-old daughter, Emily, that it would be just their day. No chauffeur. No business associates. No rushing, just the two of them. Richard wasn't the kind of man people thought of as soft. His name filled magazines and investment articles, but few ever saw the loneliness he carried. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, and though Richard did everything to keep up appearances of control, it was Emily who often reminded him what real life was about. That morning, she tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, can we go to the little cafe on Main Street? The one with the big window." Richard hesitated. He could have ordered in anything with a single phone call, but he saw her eyes light up, and for once, he said yes. The cafe wasn't fancy. It was small, a little worn down, with foggy glass windows that caught the rain. They stepped inside, and the smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air. For Richard, who usually sat in marble-floored restaurants, this felt different. Warmer somehow. Emily hopped into her seat, swinging her feet happily. They ordered hot chocolate and croissants, and for the first time in weeks, Richard relaxed. He watched his daughter giggle, sipping carefully from her mug, her little fingers holding the cup like it was treasure. Then something happened. Across the cafe, a young woman probably in her 20s sat alone at a corner table. She was scribbling in a notebook, her hair tucked messily behind her ears. Richard wouldn't have noticed her at all, except that Emily did. Emily suddenly leaned forward, eyes wide. Then, without a word, she raised her hands, and began to sign. Her tiny fingers moved hesitantly, but clearly, and the young woman across the cafe froze. The woman blinked, then slowly put down her pen, and with the softest smile, began signing back. Richard's heart skipped. He stared at his daughter, confused. "Emily," he whispered. "You know sign language?" Emily looked up at him with a shocked grin. "I learned a little at school. Mrs. Thompson taught me. She said not everyone can hear words the way we do, but they can hear with their eyes." I wanted to try. Richard's throat tightened. He hadn't known. He had been so busy, so wrapped in his business world, that he hadn't even noticed what his daughter was learning on her own. The young woman across the cafe stood and walked toward them, slowly, nervously. When she reached their table, she signed something to Emily. Emily giggled and translated softly for her father. She said, "Hello. My name is Sarah." "You're very sweet." Sarah's voice was soft, but slightly strained, as if she wasn't used to speaking much. Still, she smiled warmly at Emily. Richard found himself fumbling for words. "It's very nice to meet you, Sarah." Sarah nodded, then scribbled something quickly in her notebook, and showed it to him. "Your daughter is special. Not many people take the time to learn my language." For a moment, Richard couldn't speak. His chest tightened as he looked at Emily, who simply sipped her hot chocolate, like it was the most normal thing in the world. They spent nearly an hour together, Emily and Sarah signing back and forth, laughing silently yet so loudly in the way that only hearts can laugh. Sarah told Emily, through gestures and scribbled words, about her dream of teaching other children sign language, of building a school one day where deaf and hearing kids could learn side by side, but she admitted it with a small, almost embarrassed shrug, like a dream she didn't believe could ever be real. Richard sat there, listening, watching. Something inside him cracked open. When Emily excused herself to the restroom, Richard leaned across the table. "Sarah," he said gently, "this dream of yours, why don't you do it?" Sarah looked down, cheeks flushed, and wrote on the notebook, "I don't have the money. I work 2 jobs. Dreams like mine, they don't happen for people like me." Richard froze. A wave of silence filled his chest, heavy and aching. Because once, a long time ago, before the suits and skyscrapers and boardrooms, he had been that person too, the one who thought dreams didn't belong to people like him. And now, here he was, sitting across from someone who just needed a chance. When Emily returned, she held Sarah's hand, like they had been friends forever. Richard watched them together, and for the first time in years, his eyes burned with tears. That night, after they left the cafe, Richard couldn't sleep. He kept hearing Sarah's words in his head. He saw Emily's little hands signing with so much innocence and love, and he thought about the fortune he had built, a fortune that, if he was honest, felt empty more often than not. The next morning, Richard returned to the cafe alone. Sarah was there again, notebook in hand. She looked surprised when he sat across from her. "I don't usually do this," Richard began. "But sometimes life shows you exactly what you are supposed to do." He slid a folded envelope across the table. Sarah frowned, opening it. Inside was a check. Enough to rent a small building. Enough to buy supplies. Enough to make her school real. She gasped, covering her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She shook her head furiously, signing no, no, I can't accept this. But Richard reached across and held her trembling hands. His voice cracked as he whispered, you can. Because my little girl reminded me what kindness looks like. She reminded me what dreams are worth, and maybe this is how I honor my wife's memory too, by giving light where it's needed most. Sarah broke down, sobbing silently, and in that moment, Richard felt something shift inside him. The emptiness he had carried for so long was filled with something new, something warm. Weeks later, Emily held his hand as they walked into a small classroom where children, both deaf and hearing, were laughing, learning, and signing together. Sarah stood at the front, her eyes shining brighter than ever before. Richard knelt beside Emily and whispered, do you see what you started, sweetheart? Emily just smiled, her little hands moving gracefully through the air. Love always speaks, and Richard knew, without a doubt, that his daughter had just taught him the most valuable lesson of his life. So next time you see someone who seems different, remember kindness is a language everyone understands. And sometimes, it only takes one small act to change the world. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us all of